Okay, we're going to get going. We're 3 minutes after 7. We're going to start with a roll call. Teresa, do you want to do roll?
Helen Walker, Elizabeth Taylor,
Present.
Richard Richardson,
Present.
Kathy Bowles,
Present.
Dennis Kramer,
Present.
Russ Perkins, Liza Gulliver,
Present.
Sandra Murphy,
Present.
and Casey Clark.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. So one suggestion that we had was potentially at the start of the meeting is, and I know some of us have met before, right? We have some new faces. Probably worth just kind of going around, just saying a couple minutes, like not 20 minutes, but just, your interest and just a little bit about you so everybody has a good opportunity to be able to meet everybody. Do you want to start, Dennis?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dennis Kramer, and I come from, I live in Swartz Creek. I'm a former council member, City of Swartz Creek council member there. I served on that council for 8 years, and I like to think I have the experience to be an asset to this committee. Also, having taken care of my mother for X amount of years, I think I bring some insight on where to put some of our money to help our community with their own parents based on my experience. I'm a graduate of Central Michigan University, and by trade I'm a former field archaeologist. All right, so it's glad to meet everybody. Hope we have a very productive meeting today, and nice to meet you all.
Kathy, go ahead.
Good afternoon or evening. Kathy Bowles. I am retired in 2018 from the CEO of the Valley Area Agency on Aging, serving in that capacity for 28 years or so, both at the local level. I served at the statewide level, and I served aging at the national level. And I, too, was a caregiver. But I think what I enjoy most about this task force is I remember when it started. I mean, I was an executive director when this millage passed the first time. So I remember those discussions and all of the thought that went into passage of it and how it was funded. Nice to be working with all of you.
Richard?
Hi, I'm Richard Richardson. My interest in this task force is from the perspective of looking at needs that are in the community that I've experienced as a caregiver and as a senior citizen that's participating. I participate predominantly with two senior centers. The Burton is my primary one, and Davison is the secondary one. As I mentioned last time, I'm a AARP tax counselor and do the tax program at Burton and Crapel. My background is I'm a nurse, RN. I worked at Hurley Medical Center for 36 years in various clinical and administrative roles. And then I taught at University of Michigan in the community health, population health nursing program. And I hold a PhD from Eastern Michigan University in nursing education.
Good evening, everyone. It's good to see you again. My name is Elizabeth Taylor, and I was born here, and I'm 82 years old. So, of course, I'm very interested in this gathering. And it starts simply as the chairs, because wherever I go, I have trouble getting up or out of chairs. My knees are very challenged, and it seems like that's true for senior elders. One of the dangerous things that I see that happens at centers and at convention gatherings is chairs that are on wheels, and seniors use their arms to get up, and that pushes the chairs out, and it's a very dangerous thing. So I would like to make everyone aware of that. I think that's just hugely important. The other thing is senior citizen centers have stairs, and I don't understand why they don't have ramps. I think that's a safety feature. I just think it doesn't make sense if it's an emergency or the elevators don't work. I just think it's a simple things that young people don't look at. I know I didn't when I was young, but it makes a very big difference for me now. And it's hard to communicate to young people those kinds of regular things that you need. It's very hard to have the conversation with, I'm going to say, grant writers, because that's not their experience, and they have their way of writing grants and doing things. And to say we need better chairs or chairs that are ergonomically suitable for elders. And we're an elder at 60, and a different elder at 70, and a different elder at 80. And of course, I'm going on to 90, and I'll be driving all of that time. So we don't think that far ahead. And our geography here in Genesee County is aging. So everything needs to be focused at aging. I remember when we always talked about Head Start and all the little things we needed for little people. That's the kind of conversations we need to be hearing at the coffee shops or wherever we hang out about us. And I love my sterling hair, but I just think that seniors don't get the respect that they deserve. And I'm not talking about the traditional white gloves respect. I'm just talking about how heavy doors are, how heavy baskets are. I just think we just need to educate the world on what it is to be an elder. And I think I didn't experience that when I traveled outside of this country, as close as Canada or Mexico. And I think it was very different for me when I was in Europe. They were like, do you need extra this, or did you want that, or can we make sure you have enough of this, and like water, seniors don't get enough water. And seniors are alone much too much. So if you know a senior, check in on them, call them, take them out, hang out, show them pictures, or ask them to show you their pictures. I just think we need to concentrate on and educate everybody what a senior needs, what would make a healthy, happy senior. I'm not on any medications. It's like, I just think people need to understand that you can be a healthy old person. But if I need services, I haven't been a caregiver, I need a caregiver. I need someone to help me with the lawn. I mean, it takes me just days to do my lawn. I don't even want the lawn anymore. So I think we just need to learn those things. It ought to be something that's on our keychains or something that reminds us, like we know everything about heart disease and cancer. I think we need to know a lot more about seniors. I think doctors need to know a lot more about seniors too. And I think culture is really important about seniors. How seniors are treated within their cultures is very different, and we need to understand that. Thank you.
Russ?
I'm Russ Perkins. I'm from Swartz Creek. I've been, like Elizabeth, I was born here in Flint, Old Women's Hospital. And so I'm interested in many of the same things that you are. And I'm glad to meet everybody here. I think we've got a good group. There's my background. I've been heavily into teaching. I was a teacher at Flint Northwestern for over 33 years, and prior to that, I was in Philadelphia and in the Philippines. And I've had some experience with the UAW and GM and in many of the plants here as part-time as a consultant. My interests are very similar as far as I'm thinking also that many people don't understand the elderly or the seniors. I've changed my views. I've learned more in the last, since COVID especially, than probably in the previous 20 or 30 years. Putting things together. I think there's a tremendous resource in the seniors in this county. I think we can help provide guidance and direction and maybe solve some of our problems. We talked, I'm also a member of Kiwanis and Swartz Creek. We were talking about the gun violence, and there was a program on Channel 12, and nobody on the panel who was talking was a senior. Everybody was younger. And so the experience that we have growing up and the accumulated wisdom of how to raise children and how to deal with children has changed from what we experienced growing up. I think we have a lot to offer. We were left out, and I want to see, I think, more seniors involved daily, particularly with our children and our young parents. Give them some guidance, not telling them what to do, but just experience our experiences and the things that made us capable of coping with the variety of challenges we face today.
Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. Lisa Gulliver, Fire Up Chips. So we've got 3 of us here in the room. So that's about a third of us now. We'll have to see where Helen comes in. I'm from Clio, Mount Morris, Montrose. I have a degree from Central Michigan in community development with a concentration in health. Although I work for General Motors, I did not follow my degree. But I have been a caregiver for my grandparents. My grandma lived to be 97. My grandpa lived to be 90. I literally this week am moving my 87-year-old mother down from Traverse City to Clio to be closer to me because I can't do a 3-hour drive every weekend anymore. And her husband passed away in March, so she was up there out in the middle of nowhere by herself. I've been a volunteer at the Crapole Senior Center since during COVID, so about 2021, so about 4 years now. So I see some of the struggles that some of the seniors go through, especially low-income seniors in the Montrose, Clio, Mount Morris area. So I just want to, get more involved. I've been past involved. I have 2 sons. So I was on the athletic boosters at the high school. So I've always been involved on the kids side of everything. So now I'm shifting over to the older generations because I'm literally knocking on the door. I'll be there next year. So I just hope that, we can get things resolved and move things along for some of our older seniors. Thank you.
So Sandra Murphy, and I retired in 2019 from 14 years with the Community Foundation of Greater Flint. I was working in donor development, and it was through that role that I learned a lot about Genesee County. I was born and raised south of Detroit, lived in Lansing for a big part of my professional life, and then moved here. I'm from Flushing. My county commissioner is Dale Waghill. I am very interested in learning more about how the revenue is dispersed. I was very impressed last time we met with the wide range of services that are funded through this millage. Did not know that, and I think there is a lot of what this millage supports that people don't understand in the county. So I'm looking forward to learning more about that. My background, I have a master's in management and one in early childhood. I've done nonprofit management for about 50 years. So I'm used to systemic approaches to problem solving. And while I've lived in Wayne County and Ingham County, there's a lot of similarity in the Flint and Genesee area that I see from the Detroit, Wayne County area. So I'm hoping to bring that experience to this process. And I'm looking forward to working with all of you. I mean, this is a unique group of people. We were all sort of like picked by our individual commissioners, as I understand it. And then they threw us into this pot, right? So I'm really looking forward to getting to know you all. Thanks.
I'm Casey Clark. I'm from Davison. A former city council member, former city DDA, former Optimist Club, current township DDA member. Used to own my own tax and accounting practice. I'm an accountant now. Still, that's what I do. And I look forward to working with you all. Thank you.
So my name, for everybody's benefit, is Derek Bradshaw. I'm the director of Genesee County Planning. Been at the Planning Commission 29.5 years, probably, somewhere in that. 30 years is coming up fairly soon. I'm excited to see people from lots of different backgrounds come together to kind of deal with this and do the evaluation. And for me, it's just, how do we support this task force so that you guys and ladies and gentlemen can make the decisions to make the recommendations to the county board. This millage is a gift that our taxpayers have given us over the last multiple years. It's been renewed overwhelmingly. I think that's a good sense of success. And so, what is the next 10 years bring? I'm excited with that. Helen just walked in. I'm not going to put you on the spot. We were just going around, just a quick introduction, and then just a little bit about your background or stuff like that. Okay. Well, I'm Helen. And before we start, microphones. It's the button on the right when it's red. And then make sure you're about this far away-ish, okay, so it'll pick up.
Okay, perfect. So let me first apologize for my tardiness. I work in Detroit. I did not know it was going to be construction. It wasn't construction this morning. So I apologize. I did leave work at 1:30, giving myself an hour and a half. It took a little longer, so my apologies for my tardiness. Again, I'm Helen Walker. I work for the UAW. I'm the director of the Civil and Human Rights Department. I've been a UAW member for 25 years, been on the international staff for 17, worked for them for the last 20 years. I'm a mother of 3, a glamma of 1 glam daughter and 2 glam pups, who are my world. And what else do you want me to? Is that all? Okay. All right. Well, I'm happy to be here. I think this is going to be very exciting, and I'm happy to serve our seniors. I live in Flint, right by my college. Mm-hmm.
A couple other people I'm going to have. Teresa, do you want to introduce yourself really quick?
I'm Teresa Lefevre. I'm the secretary in the planning department.
You might get notifications or something. And then Gwen.
My name is Gwen.
I'm also going to have Lynn introduce herself as well. I know a lot of you met her at the last meeting, but there's some new. Okay, good. So that's just kind of an initial kind of get to know. I know we have some new faces in the room today. Welcome everybody. I'm excited as we get to know each other. I think there's good things to come. Part of the process in our last meeting, we talked about, and that was just kind of some general things. We want to have a chair and a vice chair. We want to kind of approve things, allow for discussion, those type of things. And so one of the things on our agenda is a chair and a vice chair. And so at this point, I'm going to open it up for either nominations for chair, or if volunteers for chair is a different way to phrase it as well. Because ultimately, this task force is, needs to be chaired by somebody on the task force. We can provide the information, but ultimately we need a chair and a vice chair. So is there any either nominations for chair or volunteers for chair? Sure, go ahead.
Can I just see like who wants to be chair or vice chair, just so I know? I mean, I'm sure somebody wants to, right? So we just get that out of the way. See who wants to be that first, and then I think we make our decision from there.
I like that approach. I'm willing to be vice chair.
I'm willing to be chair.
Excellent. Is there any other nominations or people that want to be chair or vice chair? Okay. So hearing none, if somebody wants to make a motion to appoint Richard for chair and Sandra as vice chair.
I move that Richard Richardson be named chair of this task force and Sandra Murphy be deemed the vice chair.
I'll second.
Been moved and supported. Any discussion? All those in favor of say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Congratulations. So with that, if I can turn the meeting over to you and just run us down the agenda items if you want. So we just finished our chair and vice chair selection. So we really have like future meeting dates, and let me talk about minutes real quick. I know I skipped something. So in your packet, you have the minutes from the last meeting. We're not asking you to approve them today. Take a look at them. At the next meeting, if you have any things you want changed or additions or deletions, let us know. But at the next meeting, we'll be looking to approve those. We will be getting these out beforehand at the next meeting, so we'll have both sets for this one and the next. So this is just for your information. And then with that, I'll turn it over to the chair.
Thank you. The next item is looking at future meeting dates. There's a separate sheet that has the dates listed.
We took, this is the survey we sent out. We got wild changes in dates and times all over the place. We tried to look for accommodating a couple different schedules and a couple different times. The date that we came back with was actually the first Thursday of the month at 3 p.m. was the date that we're proposing for the rest of the year up through July. You'll notice in January we actually have it on the 8th due to a holiday.
I would just like to comment. So if we're out before dark, I'm okay. I don't like driving in the dark, and I really want us to be sensitive to seniors, practice what we're teaching, So if 2:30 gets us out by dark, then is that a better time?
This is up to the group. So we propose 3:30, hour and a half meeting, be done at 4:30. If we want to do 2:30, that's...
I can relate completely, because what the lamps are putting in the new headlights in the vehicles nowadays, the new LED lamps are blinding to our senior community, and I can speak to that. It's their intensity. It's blinding, and it's dangerous. So I understand completely about getting home safe.
Would it be problematic if we moved it to 2 Thursdays? Does that way, if we do run over a little bit, hopefully it's still predominantly light for us. Does that present problems for anybody?
No.
I think I'm the only. I just work till 4 every day.
Uh-huh.
So we go back to 2:30 then? Considering.
Well, I just really want us to practice what we're preaching. I think we are a senior task force. If seniors are having trouble with dark, I think we should lean in that direction. I really do. So we are who we are. So practice what we preach.
I totally agree. Just what time does it get dark? 5, 6.
Usually by 5, it's
5:45. So I mean, all right.
And normally, how long do these meetings last on an average?
I think an hour and a half is plenty. Okay. But if it did go an extra little bit, that would be 2 hours. So if we started at 2:30, we would be done by 4:30 at the latest.
That's feasible.
Probably 4, somewhere in that range. If we started at 2:30.
All right.
We start at 3, it's done at 5.
Yeah.
Somewhere in that range.
But whatever we got to do to make it work.
Do we have a motion for 2:30 then?
I'll make a motion that our meetings start at 2:30.
Vote on A's. Everybody in favor, say A, please. Or raise your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, then our time will move to 2:30 on the first Thursday of the month, with the exception of January. Our next item on the agenda is in terms of the work program. One of the things which I reflected on after our last meeting, and I'm just as guilty, I think, as anybody sitting around the table, is that at times I felt the conversation went off in tangents. And even though it represents rich dialogue and it gives each of us a perspective of other people's perspective and lived experiences, I think we can continue to some extent with that, but there also needs a mechanism for us to look back at what is this task force for, what is the purpose of this task force. So in terms of Robert's rules, there's always that call for the question. I think we should, each of us, have the opportunity to have what we call for the purpose, and that's take a moment, stop, go back and reflect in terms of what is the purpose of the task force, and are we moving forward in terms of that purpose, or have we gone off in a tangent?
So I would like to respond to that or react to that, if I may. I didn't participate in that. Government did. And I think that's where we lose a lot of what we want in this setting, is to be senior-centered. And sometimes seniors do go off on a tangent. That's what you do when you're 82 years old. Sometimes you do that.
And I'm just as guilty.
You can call me back to session if you want. But I'm just saying, we didn't write the grant, you know what I mean? We didn't write this, and that was one of the things I mentioned early on, is the beginning is so important. Who's driving this? And I think it's important this is a good opportunity. This is a great opportunity to hear what seniors want. What does my community of seniors want that I would like to share at this table? I think that is really an important point.
Comments?
To that point, I know we were all invited to the Burton Senior Center yesterday for the forum. Did anyone have the opportunity to attend? You were there?
So all seniors don't email.
Correct. So I just wondered if Richard, you were in attendance, maybe if we could have a little bit of a brief overview for those of us that, it doesn't have to be today, but just a little bit of a brief overview of what you saw come out of that forum.
And I'm going to go back and tie that into our purpose, because I agree with you that needs is a very important portion of what this task force is looking at. And I think we can have conversations around the table regarding needs. I think that's very appropriate for this task force. But also, we have the end game that we have to have a report ready in June and presented in July. So even though we can have discussions, I think periodically we need to be pulled back on what our task is. When I look at what the proposed plan was, there is a huge portion that says assess the needs of older adults, 60 and plus. I think there's several avenues which we can do. Part of it is the discussion around this table, but I also think there's other resources in the community that has done needs assessment. My background from community health nursing is to look at a community and do a needs assessment of that community. And it's a multi-factor approach to it. And I think there's some organizations in this community that have given some background or did those type of needs assessments and can provide us with information of what data they have given us. I think there's two sets of data points that we can look at. Qualitative is what is the lived experience. It's what we talk about. The chairs. Yes, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I agree wholeheartedly when you talk about, people grabbing the handles of the chair and trying to sit up that the chair is going to go backwards on you. Those are very important risk factors, I think, for our population. But also, I think we need to look at quantitative in terms of how these different programs serve the community. How is data collected in terms of the number of people that they serve? There's going to be some that I think are going to be very high volume, and I perceive that some of them may be very low volume. We may also, I'll toss out looking at the perspective, is that program addressing different levels of risk? Maybe it is something with an elder abuse program, and there's only 20 or 50 cases a year, but that is a high risk versus, let's say, a senior center that maybe addresses moderate to low risk. So I think we need to also look at it from that perspective. I think a portion of our meetings should be dedicated to looking at needs, but also we need to look at the ways in which programs are put together, the services that are being offered, and then also look at it from a budgetary priority, because those are things that is charged in this document. We may not agree with what we're being charged with, but as we serve on this committee, I think we need to, go back to this because we've agreed to be part of this committee. We're in agreement that we're going to address what the commissioners want us to do. So again, I think there should be dialogue, but I think periodically, any one of us, I think, should be able to say, can I call for what the proposal was? What is the purpose of the committee so we can get back on track? So I toss that out to you.
So one of the things that after we met the last time, staff kind of tried to organize kind of the thoughts of the committee of some of the stuff we heard. And we kind of in this handout, kind of outlined some of those steps, right? Getting to which says Senior Services Task Force Work Program. And so one of the things that kind of start off, right? And I think getting to what you were saying, Richard, there's a lot of different programs that do a lot of different things. And I think the people at the last meeting, there was a lot of wow, right? Like that's a lot of stuff. And so one thing that we were looking at is, these are some of the steps that need to happen in order for this group to make those decisions. And so what we were proposing is if we can start putting these things together, right, then that will inform the process. And once we start, and then we can change or move direction, as long as, to your point, we keep in mind that end goal and the end timeline, right? Because that's important. So one of the things after Lynn did an excellent presentation, but it was short about the programs, right? And so one of the things we were thinking of is, for the first couple meetings or so, invite in the people that actually receive the funding, to give them a couple minutes to talk about, these are the programs I run. We can also ask them different questions, right? Like, what are the emerging needs that you see? Are there gaps? So we can kind of develop something that's like a short, succinct, because there's 39 different providers, just to be clear, that then they can focus in on certain questions that they can answer when they come in. And then they can provide that, more importantly, they can provide that so that all the members can go back and look at it later. But that might be a good starting point, just from that initial understanding of the programs, because then that will allow, if there's a question on that program, the best person to answer that question is the person that runs that program. So as staff, we would propose that first couple meetings, let's just focus on what's currently being done and structure in a way so everybody has a few minutes to come in and talk before the task force and talk about what they do, and talk about what their success is, right? If that makes sense.
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly, because I could take that information and take it back to my community.
Right.
That's important.
And we can. Go ahead. Sorry.
If I could, so you're proposing that every senior center director and 39 providers are all going to do a 2 to 5 minute presentation, right? Is that what I heard?
So it's 39 total.
So that's the senior center directors and the providers.
Yes.
Okay, so again, 39 people
Right.
in the next 2 months, and they're all going to have 2 to 3 minutes.
So
Then there would be time for questions.
So you would want, to be fair, you would want to have them answer some questions in advance, right? So it's a 1 or 2 page thing, so you have something. And then that way they can come in. Because one thing that we've heard is people said, well, this senior center is different than this. Everybody has their own differences. We would have to look at what that means for time, right? And how many people that would be. And is that 1 meeting, or is that 2 meetings, 2.5 meetings, something to that effect. So if you did, the next meeting might just focus, like we could change it. Next meeting, maybe we just have the senior center directors come and talk, just that chunk. And then the next one maybe is service providers, or something like it. We could chunk it out so it's not overwhelming, but it also allows to ask questions, right? Yeah. Because go ahead, sorry.
Way the directors see the centers and way the service providers see the centers.
It would just be on what they provide.
I think, thank you for that. I better understand then what you're proposing. And this may be my way that, in thinking. I would prefer to see some data first and then bring people in, so that if I knew what the landscape was like for the providers, because I barely even understand, other than the list that's here, what services are provided. But then if I could see where they are in the county and how many people we're servicing, I might have a better way of asking questions and understanding what a particular senior center person is saying to me, because
Are you saying you don't go to senior citizen centers?
No, I do. I go to my senior center, but I'm also keenly aware that I don't access any of the providers right now. And when I saw on the list that there's a provision of services for snow and lawn, fine, but I don't know where that is. I don't know how many seniors are being serviced. So I don't want to have the person who comes in and presents that covers that scope of services to have to answer my questions about how many people are you servicing. To me, that is a data point that I could read. And then I would be able to, again, this is for me, better formulate the question that I might want to ask them about that. So the other thing is that geography-wise, I'm a really visual person. It would be wonderful to have a map of the county and know the overlay of where the senior centers are, and then where are the service providers in terms of who they service. Because I don't know if there's a real gap of services in the north end of the county versus down in the Linden-Fenton area. You know, I'm going to raise a question. Why is that, right? What's going on that makes that look different? Is it that there's resources already available that somebody else is doing and they don't need the village service up there? So anyway, that's already, my head is thinking about what would I want to ask the person based on the data that I see and perhaps the geography of what it is we're actually doing.
So would you prefer that the next meeting we just talk about here's all the and spend more time than 5 or 10 minutes and just walk through the maps of these are the service providers. Here's some of the data that currently is being collected by those data. So it's more just spending the next meeting just kind of walking through those 39 different things with some data about it, so that everybody can be a little bit more understanding. So if we get to the next steps and we want to talk to them, then we have a better idea. Because we can, I think that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, that, again, this is, for me, a way that I learned. But I would really welcome hearing from the rest of you.
I have a different perspective, and it's
Can you make sure to just back up and pull the mic a little bit in front of you? Perfect.
Quality. My experiences and my knowledge of Deming's ideas, I'm thinking that instead of, like in the factory, you focus on a part to make sure that it meets quality specifications. In this setting, I'm thinking of quality meeting the wishes of the senior, the person. And I'm thinking of myself being put in positions as, let's say I fall, I get hit my head, I can't speak. What happens? Somebody speaks for me instead of trying to communicate with me. I end up doing things that I wouldn't have chosen. I'm thinking of people, for example, that aren't in the system, that chose to do it themselves and aren't using the services. They did so because they wanted to stay in charge of their own life. And I think that data is very dangerous. It depends on who is taking and writing the question that the person responds to. What the word is that's put in the survey can mean different things to different people at different times. So I'm thinking if to keep it simple, if we would focus more on one person, any of us, end up in a situation where we're brought into this situation with an accident and what we would want to happen. I'm seeing in the book here a number of places where they're asking the family and the people who are doing the caring for what to do. The senior citizen is not asked at all. And I would like to start maybe looking at from the individual point of view. I had an experience with an uncle who had Lou Gehrig's disease, and he was standing upright. This was decades ago, and could speak. He couldn't speak. His eyes were open, and all of us were talking around him. And there was no attempt to communicate with him. I'm realizing that from things I've read, people have been in situations like that they found they could communicate using eye blinking, touching, and so forth, other mechanisms of getting feedback from that person. Things like Morse code. If you put up something in front of their eyes showing what A and then the dot dashes and B and dot dashes and so forth, pick from there and would be able to blink and communicate what his wishes were, what he needed. You could ask a question, he could respond with yes or no. I'm wondering if another area is in having people that specialize in communicating with people that are having difficulty communicating and communicating with people that come in to make sure that they're in control of their own decisions that are made on their behalf.
I think I can address that because, as a caregiver for my brother for 32 years and him being developmentally disabled, whenever there was planning meetings, he was always included in it. He had a voice in it. And I think a lot of providers, that is where, their basis of the program that they're trying to develop for that individual centers around that individual's needs. And I think, maybe you were in a situation in which that individual didn't get express needs, but I think providers try and focus on the individual and the individual's needs and the individual being part of that planning process. I mean,
I think we
Pull the microphone.
I think I think we need to discuss these matters at a higher level than down to smaller details, because at the end of the day, I think as a task force, we are to determine what are the priorities for senior programs in Genesee County, right?
Yes.
And we are to determine, we are not, but are we to have input on, in-home services versus social services? I mean, are we to determine what kind of difference in funding that? So at the end of the day, we need to make those determinations. And so I don't think that the group has a really good overview of not necessarily providers, but the amount of dollars that come into the community that are earmarked just for seniors. And it might be beneficial for the group to know and understand what the senior millage money does and why they fund that, and what maybe other like Valley Area Agency on Aging, because they receive senior funds. And so that you understand what programs both of them, so that they don't duplicate, offer. And I think because I agree with you to the extent that I don't think that we can go through 39 presentations, but we do need the data to be able to explain to us with the people that are receiving funding, how many people are they serving, and is it reaching who it was originally supposed to reach when they put the millage in place. So that, my 2 cents. I think we need to have some clarity on the aging dollars that come into this community, so that everybody knows and understands that. Then drill down to and looking at needs assessments, because different organizations provide needs assessment. information, and then we can say, okay, whereas the needs of the community is it more important to this community that people be able to live independently, or do we want to fund programs over here? So I think that's what we have to ferret out some way or another, and help set the priorities for where the dollars are spent. So to me, the first thing is to identify where the aging dollars come from and what programs and services do they provide with it.
A general overview would be helpful to our mission. Okay? With maybe a presentation and some information we could go take home and review.
Do you think, and I'm just thinking time and information, right? Kathy, if we were to do you think one meeting or an hour, hour and a half is enough just for the senior village fund stuff, and then one for VAAA, or do you think we could do that all in one, or are there other talking about the funding that comes in for seniors, because I think that is important. I think that's a very important. Do you think that would make sense? Like, are there other funders that we need to bring to the table as well?
Bring other funders if to the table, but right now just determining the senior dollars, the dollars for aging that come in the community. I would say you probably need a meeting for maybe Valley to present their information and what they provide, and another meeting for Lynn to be able to provide all what she does. But not only just provide, we need maybe a spreadsheet before us to say, here's who they serve, and here's where the dollars come from. Because many of these providers Valley gets more than just a single resource for aging services. So it's Medicaid dollars, it's other dollars that come into the community. So a breakdown of where those dollars come from, who's served with it, I think would be a good start for us, so that everybody has a good grasp of what's available.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What I was saying might fall under the area of just having a separate line item for communications. Making sure that is something that's being looked into, and every person goes through the same process.
I think at the end of the day, I think we need the data to look into that. But I think at the end of the day, I think communications will definitely be a part of it, because we all know that not everyone in our community knows what's out there. I mean, the lawn, the snow. So I think is an evolution of our process in going through it. I think communication will definitely come part of that, but we definitely need the data, like Kathy and Sandra have said, on who provides what today to who and where those funds come from. Like she said, do we have overlap? You know, is someone getting Medicaid money and they're also getting senior millage money to provide the same thing?
And going back to your question about yesterday in the presentation, it was from the state of Michigan. It's the Bureau on Aging, Community Living and Support Bureau. They were looking at what are the needs in this tri-county community. It was a open forum type thing. And I think people identify a lot of needs that some of them are higher priorities than others. There's no way, I think, that we can take the money which the citizens of Genesee County have given us and meet everybody's needs. That, I think, is an unrealistic process. So again, I think needs is part of it. One thing also I want to suggest is we've got a list of dates and we have a list of things that we want to do. Can we sort of maybe pair this together, especially towards the end? Because I'd like to have a lot of discussion, but at the end we have to have a written report. So I think in terms of, the end of March, the beginning of April, May, we need to focus on what are we producing to give back to the commissioners, a document, number one, and number two, can we formate parts of that document as we go along? Like if we're addressing needs, can we write a section on needs? if there's demographics, can we write a section on demographics? That way, we're not at the end trying to pull everything together in terms of the process. So,
And
you know,
remember what we did 6 months ago and what we said 6 months ago.
right.
So do you want, and we can do a couple things. So we have, to your point, I like the idea of dates and tasks. So just listening to some of the conversation, do you want like the December meeting, we can talk about, have Lynn come and do a in-depth presentation on senior millage. And then January, we'll have somebody from VAAA talk about the other funding and those type of things. And then staff, we can go through and look, backtracking from the end date, where some of those other tasks, because at some point there's a prioritization, right? And there also needs to be some feedback into that prioritization.
The only thing I would interject is I think we've got 39 entities that is funded, and I think in some manner each of those entities somehow need to also have a voice in this process. From some of the feedback I got on the streets, there's people out there that aren't happy because they feel they don't have a feedback in terms of what they see as priorities.
And we can come up with,
Can
go
I
ahead.
speak to that just a minute, though? I want to, again, remember what our goal is, right?
Yep.
And so by bringing in the service providers and the senior center directors, I mean, these folks get contracts from the county to deliver the services. So we're actually talking to somebody whose payroll is supported through this. If there's a frustration they've got around inequity in the funding or not, whatever, I don't know that that is part of what we can really get into. And I really, as we've been talking about trying to stay up here at this level, our recommendations are supposed to be based on what we're seeing, right? And whether or not continuation of some of those contracts, we might say that that's not something that we would recommend. And it doesn't mean that the county commission is going to do what we say. But I'm concerned about having individuals come in, giving them 3 to 4 minutes, and what we hear is a beef about they're not getting.
I don't
enough
think it's
money
going to be
for
a beef. I think we need to designate what they're going to present in terms of what are the needs they're serving. Or, again, numbers, case management
that
type
would be
issues.
coming from the county staff, I thought. See,
No.
that's therein is well.
If you talk about, let's say, a service provider in terms of like the agency that works in terms of visual and deaf individuals, what is their perspective of the needs of that population? How are they trying to meet those needs? I don't want this, again, like what you're saying, to be a beef issue, but I think there needs to be some understanding of the funding and how it's divvied up too. I think one of the issues that, in my understanding, is that the senior centers were upset because they felt that they were being passed over in terms of any increase in funding, that they were redlined at one point in time.
Yeah, that's how this got started. So again, I just want to. Whenever we're bringing in individuals in, I mean, one, we've got to make sure everybody's in here, because if 2 or 3 people cannot make that meeting for whatever reason, whatever we come up with could be viewed as favoritism. And I don't think that's what we want to do, but it could be viewed that way. And the other thing is that it feels like frosting on the cake when you bring in folks in, because of course we want them to be cheerleaders for their programs. I mean, they do the tough work. They're the ones delivering the services. That's always a wonderful thing. But then we're going to be looking at the numbers about how many people do they really serve, and is that equitable in terms of how the pie is divided up? So if we do the presentations, I would prefer that they be after we've done all the data analysis. I also don't know, and Kathy might know more, do we need to have a separate meeting for VAAA? Can we put both of those financial pictures together in one meeting?
May be able to, like divide the meeting up to whatever, and one has 30 minutes or 40 minutes, and another one has that. And you can always call people back to ask more questions. But I also would say that if we do bring them, if that's the direction that the group wants to go in, then when they come, they also bring the data, a spreadsheet of some sort to say, here's what we're funding, here's how much we're putting into that program, and here's how many people are being served. And then also. We also need to look at needs assessment information.
Yeah, and I don't know who would have that. I mean,
Well, the hospitals do needs assessments, and that's why the state was probably here,
That's
because
why-
they start collecting that. Each area agency has to create a plan over 3 years based on needs of the community. So
That's why I mentioned the Greater Flint Health Coalition, because they have created a community assessment, a comprehensive community assessment, and there's some components in that is focusing on healthy senior living.
Great to get those
And-
needs assessments. Yeah.
And the other thing with the Greater Flint Health Coalition is it's a neutral agency. It's not,
yeah,
and I think we need that neutrality. I mean, VAAA is huge support system in this, but also they are part of this grant that is, they have a grant that's getting funding for, I think, 2 different programs
but
from the millage. So, again, looking at that issue of favoritism, by exclusively looking at them, are we providing, a case of favoritism? I think we need to have more of the neutrality from the community also to blend with that.
So does the VAAA just serve Genesee County?
No.
Right. So will we be getting the data for Genesee County?
that's what you asked for.
Okay, because a lot of people don't understand that. They think it's just Genesee County. And I think I think the public, I think what we're doing, the public ought to know about it, whether they know how to find us on Zoom or not, so that they can have some input. I think what he's saying, Russ is saying, is really important, because if we don't keep our hands on the people need of this, like you said, you used the word cheerleader, the agency can come in and be their own cheerleader. But I want to know, for an example, why aren't there more men at the senior citizen centers? Why don't men go to, and I go to 3 or 4 different ones.
If we're looking historically, in any population, there's always more women than there is men. From all the community assessments that I have, usually there's about 50 to 52% of a population, and generally speaking of a population, are
longer.
women.
Tell me why men are not going to senior citizen centers at 60 when they're young and healthy and enjoying. Because men have issues with loneliness.
And that's a huge thing that senior centers are trying to address.
What
Socialization.
What was the name of that organization you talked about? Supposed to be non-bias. What was the name of that?
Greater Flint Health Coalition.
Okay. Thank you.
Real quick. These are going to be weird questions maybe, but what exactly are we trying to accomplish right now? I understand the dialogue that's going on, and I get where we're at in this conversation. I've been following along. I just have no idea what it is that we're specifically trying to accomplish right now. And if all it is dialogue, perfectly fine. I just wanted to make sure. I don't know where we're trying to go with this at the end, but definitely right there with you guys and what we're talking about.
My perspective of where I'm going at right now is, how do we address an assessment in terms of the needs of this community for senior service?
Like when you say address one, put one together for presentation to.
And rather than, it's way beyond the scope of this committee to do a needs assessment.
Sure, definitely.
So I'm looking or proposing that we look at other agencies that in the community that have already done a needs assessment. Greater Flint Health Coalition, I'm proposing, is a broad one VAAA may be looking at some in terms of programming.
I understand that definitely. To what end though? Like, where are we trying to end up with this?
What needs are out there and are they being met?
Richard, you had started this by saying, let's align our work with our monthly meetings.
Yes.
So
I just want to know.
So let's go back to data collection.
Well, no. So just right on that same point, real quick, the line item that we're on is work program, and is this the work program? Are we discussing this? Is this? I feel like this is kind of what we're discussing right now, right? Is like how we're going to go through this. So this isn't the work program. We are now trying to make our own work program. Is that?
No, it's pairing up which meetings are we going to designate to data collection, which meetings are we going to designate in terms of looking at how the budget is put together, which meetings are we going to look at,
Yep, I got you.
those type of issues. Yeah, so when we get down here at the end, we've got all the data that we need. We feel that we've got a good background, so we can finalize our recommendations.
Awesome. That clarifies. Thank you.
Is we do have deadlines.
Yes,
We do have to make a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners by, when was it? July, well, June.
June. And a presentation in July, I think.
Okay, so we have deadlines to deal with here.
So Russ has his hand up down at the.
Yeah, I'm going, and I'm trying to pull together what. It seems to me that there's two groups that we're trying to serve, and one it's the people who are near the end of their lifespan, needing services, and then there's the other group that is still going to the senior centers. They're younger, and then if we maybe we can kind of break the two down to some extent, separate it that way. The data is different. Okay, it's for one age group or one condition group, and the other for the healthy group.
Well, let me interject.
The other thing is
At my senior center, we have people in their 90s, and we've got a couple 100-year-olds that come to it. So I don't think it's just the people that are younger. It's a blending of.
I shouldn't have used age, because I know one. But
well, Russ, we might be able to, and I appreciate your comments about end of life versus those who are perhaps newly retired and looking for something to fill up their time. I think the data is going to be able to point that out to us, because an overlay of even ages could be helpful. Because, I mean, I worked till I was 70, and there are other people who are having to do that just because of finances. So it doesn't mean just because you've turned 60 that you're already engaged with senior services and taking advantage of provider services or whatever. So I would hope that our demographic work would be able to get to some of what you're talking about.
Yeah, let's line up.
Let me make a suggestion. This is what I'm hearing. December 4th. If we can make it happen, and if we think we can get it done within the time allotted, we can bring in and talk about just the funding, right? Potentially VAAA, senior services, to have a breakdown of that. The next thing that I heard was we want to talk about existing needs assessments. I've heard there's potential ones that are already out there, right? I've heard Greater Flint Health Coalition. I've heard VAAA. If there's others, send them to me. But we can focus. What I'm hearing is we should focus the meeting in January on needs assessment. Right?
Yes.
Okay. And so when and the lens we want to look at on all of this is, I've heard different. I won't say ages, but different types of activities, whether it's in-home or at a senior center or just the whole, and then kind of just demographics, right? So when we look at it, whether it's a needs assessment or funding, just asking whoever comes, like, let's talk about that kind of demographic and location. That sound about right?
And those demographics, I think we also need to look at trends. What is occurring in this community? Because this community isn't a stagnant organism. It's constantly changing. And I think that can impact on not only needs, but also in terms of resources.
I would like to see maps in terms of what centers are where, and if one center has to serve multiple municipalities versus.
So
And I think that's probably in a VAAA flyer or something.
what I would suggest, and if you just indulge us, why don't you let staff take some of the comments we've made today? We'll plug in those next 2 meetings so we know what those are. We'll come back at the next meeting and have this as another topic for the rest of the months. Right? So we'll say, okay, based on some of the stuff we heard, here's where we think this type of activity needs to happen in order to get to, and then we can literally give a thing that just says, okay, we got in December, we'll respond January, February, whether it's prioritization or whatever those, so we can stay on track.
Yeah, I like that. I'd also like to say a comment that was made earlier about beginning with the end in mind. If the commissioner presentation is the 2nd of July and we build out, or with staff's help, because I'm not doing the writing, I know that, but with staff's help, we're getting chunks of this done, that we're also reviewing this material and then can say, yep, this is good, so that by May 7th, we've got a completed draft, right?
Right.
That's
Okay.
what I envision, is that, in May we'll have put together a draft, and then we can review it and make final recommendations and changes to the document.
So we're going to hold on bringing in everybody until we get through at least January and we've got some data, and then we can figure out how we want the folks to come in and present to us.
And we can do something, and we can do a hybrid. There's lots of options, right? And we could do a survey for every provider to have them fill out certain answers to get input too, right? Like, there's a lot of different ways we can deal with that, because it is a lot of people, and it's a lot of, so that might be something we could develop. And every provider, we have consistent questions, right?
That was
Like how-
actually going to be my suggestion.
And then that way everybody can read it. And then if once the group gets it, if they want to do that follow up, they can and say, hey, I think there's more in there that we need. That might be
Are meetings available on Zoom for the public?
they are on YouTube, yes.
Okay. So the public has access to these meetings.
Correct.
And will they have input to these meetings?
That hasn't been part of the plan. I mean, this is not for public hearings, or, I mean, I guess we could decide that later on, but at this point, it wasn't presented to me as a volunteer to be on here that we would be entertaining public hearings.
There's something in this that states that it's an open meeting for people to attend,
Oh, okay.
and I can't find it right now, but it's for them to attend, but they don't have direct input, is my understanding.
Okay. To comment.
Already had input from another Kiwanis member, having looked at this. So he saw me talk to me about this. So we're going to get input, through other people direct to ourselves.
Okay.
Another thing I'm going to just throw out there, quality is something that has to be done continuously. And when we end up in June, I don't want to end a feeling that, okay, we've solved the next 10 years. There has to be a way to continually get feedback as often as possible. And maybe we set up a mechanism, create a mechanism to get feedback from senior centers, from our suppliers, and they interact with each other and deal with problems that arise among themselves. So to have a process that functions ongoing.
Maybe that's something we can ask them in terms of data that we're asking for is what is your continuous quality improvement approaches
Well, I'm talking
of the services that you provide?
Well, the contract agreements with the county have some language in there, accountability language, so that the dollars are ensured to be spent the way they were allocated. But I mean, we may find out that one of the recommendations that we make to the county commissioners is that they need to be enhancing the feedback loop from providers and senior centers. I don't know what that is right now. Because if all they do is, I mean, every time I go in that senior center, you know, I'm swiping my card and they are rabid about that. And yeah, and I get that. But, you know, how it is that home health services are monitored and evaluated, I have no clue. So if one of the things that we hear about is there's consumer feedback that is gathered or not gathered, we could then maybe make a recommendation saying this or that. But I would want to know then what is the best practice in those situations, because that's not my area of expertise. And that may be something that VAAA has a little bit more knowledge of. Kathy's saying no. She's shaking her head.
Oh, no,
Don't know.
No, I was thinking of another comment I wanted to make.
Yeah. So, but I mean, I agree with you. Quality is an important thing. We need to be mindful of that, not just looking at the numbers of who's been served. Are these individual numbers? Is this a duplicate number? You know, somebody who goes to a senior center is also getting home health care services and getting their snow removal or whatever. You know, one household gets 7 different types of services. I don't understand all of that yet, but I also agree that we want to make sure that the money is used as it's intended and people are getting their money's worth. So how does that happen?
Yeah. And the other thing, or a couple of things, one of them is that the seniors are an invaluable resource not being tapped. There are tens of thousands of us in this county that are healthy, and we're not connected with our youth. And that's one of my main reasons for being here. And I don't think the money, we should be looking at the millage as just for one thing or one area, continuing to do what we've always done. We could ask for a separate millage amount to do something we choose to do. That involves an education component to making sure that everybody understands where we're going. But I think that additional millage, where it's going to help our youth and our seniors. The seniors are lonely, and they've got skills out there that the youth don't have and need.
I agree with you with that, but, you know, I think there needs to be education of what these providers do, but I think also there needs to be some, and I don't think it's part of this millage program, of education of what volunteer opportunities are out there in the community. And to do a separate millage, I mean, that shakes my bones a little bit. I think we need to focus on being very grateful to this community that nearly $9 million each year is provided to this community, because the resources in this community financially, I think, are drained right now in terms of the exodus that we've seen in terms of companies and support systems leaving this community. And, you know, I think we need to be cautious in terms of not asking for more.
So just
And there, you know, and there is a retired senior and volunteer program countywide. I mean, so those are opportunities for seniors to work with younger and older populations. But my point was, is if we wanted to have a draft plan by May, we have 5 meetings. So That means every meeting needs to be chock
Got to
full.
be productive.
Yes, that's my point.
So let me just jump in real quick because I just want to be mindful of time, right? So we're at 4:27. Excellent, healthy conversation. Once we get, if we're good with the work program, and you can allow staff, we'll get those first 2 meetings set up. We'll throw some stuff to get to us, to get to this group to be able to produce. We'll also reach back out to commissioners to look at expectations. When they mean a report, what does a report look like, right? Confirm on that. But I do want to talk a little bit about MSU, if we have some time.
Can I ask one quick question, Derek? Task force recommendation, initial task force within 90 days. Who is that back? Is that back to the commissioners, or was that a self-imposed 90 days that we set last time?
So
You remember?
the commissioners, as part of the process, want some feedback into that process. And so one of the things that they're looking for is kind of an update of where you're at, that type of stuff. So it's kind of like we've organized, we've met, we have chairs, vice chairs. This is our work program. This is where we want to be.
We can. Does everybody have one of these?
Okay, let's talk about MSU real quick. At the start, when this advisory committee or task force was made, there was a couple commissioners talked about potentially, is there value in MSU coming in, helping out with maybe some data collection or some stuff to that end as part of this process. So if there are some we want a survey of residents of what needs they want, right? Or survey of citizens, or do we want potentially them to look at how money's spent or evaluate or stuff like that? If we think there's value in potentially bringing it on, number one, that would be something that this task force would want to talk about from what you would want to see. And then the second question is, if that is something that there's interest, we could potentially bring them to the next meeting and talk about maybe some activities they may want to do or what this task force would like. So ultimately, this task force, that's the decision of the task force. If you think that there's value in that, or if you think we have enough information without that.
Wasn't there a U of M program started here, not that collects data for seniors? Wasn't there something like? So is that something that we should be tapping into?
Potentially.
It's already up and running, isn't it?
And they were part of that conversation yesterday. They were on the video side of it. There was a group from U of M. I don't know what department all. It was said was that there's representatives of U of M that are also listening in terms of data collection.
We have their contacts and we have their information.
Michigan State has some specific programs that could assist us then.
Yeah, so
Is that like an internship that somebody, or just?
no, so it would be something where the county would hire them to come in, and their researchers would research potentially whether it's if you're looking for performance measures, if you want certain data collected to part of this decision, if you want them to evaluate, or they have researchers that could do that.
I think U of M is looking at general needs of the population, where this would be something that we could target them in terms of
Specifically to-
specific data that we may need.
But there's also a cost involved with it.
Yes. there
So,
is.
I mean, I don't know that we were given I'm trusting that staff would know this, but we weren't told that we had a budget per se to be able to allocate money for research. Yeah, right.
I'm assuming it's blended in with his budget.
Well,
in terms of assisting
There
us.
might be something
I mean,
that comes out of the data, but I would, I would want staff to be looking at the data and coming with some already analysis. I mean, we're not going to, unless we get it a week ahead of time. If the first time I see it is at the next meeting, my brain is quick, but it's not that quick. So I would want staff to feel free to say, this is what we've uncovered, or this is what we're looking at, or this seems to be a trend or something like that, so that we have something at least to begin with.
and that's something I'd like to ask. Is there like some of this information that we could get in advance rather than just walking into the meeting? I think it would help focus us better in terms of.
So from an expectation standpoint, what we can do is for presentations and stuff like that, we can ask. So for like the next meeting, we can ask that any of the presentations be provided in advance, right? And we can put that with an agenda packet with all the agenda stuff, and we can send that out a week in advance. So that way, but just understand, not everybody provides presentations a week in advance. We will do our best to get that. So, because I agree, it's easier to have a chance to read it, review it, so that you're prepped for certain questions. Because it's kind of like sometimes you see it, and then when you're driving home, you think, oh, I should have asked this question, or a day later. Right. We can do that, absolutely. So a week in advance, we'll put that request out.
That's how we do things out in Swartz Creek. City council is briefed with a packet prior to the meeting.
Yep. So thoughts on MSU? Yes, no, maybe, explore it. There is a cost to everything, 100%. That would something that if there was a cost, that would be something that the county would have to look at. Correct.
At this time,
I agree with you because, in terms of development and then implementing and then analyzing the data, can they do that? And, will they give us the results in April?
And that might be a recommendation that I want to always keep in mind the parking lot or pinning things that we want to say, we didn't have time to do this, but we would highly recommend that next year you set aside money to do research in this area.
Exactly.
Hire MSU or U of M or whatever. But so our recommendation is very broad in terms of what we tell the county to do, but that doesn't mean they're going to do any of it necessarily. But we can do that.
See what you have that we can have.
Yeah.
I would just like to make a point on the data collection. I think we probably should get through that sooner than later on the collection, 'cause just based on the way the last two, this meeting and the prior meeting, have gone, I think most of the conversation wants to be had around gaps in service and funding prioritization, right? I mean, that's going to be the meat and potatoes of what we're really talking about here. So we kind of got to get through the data collection process quickly to get to that, just so we don't run out of time, because we've kind of determined what the end of this is going to look like in the beginning, and that centerpiece, I feel like, is going to be where people have the most input, right? I mean, that's what we're here for, is that middle piece. Yeah.
Right. Okay. That's all as staff that we have for today.
So should make a motion to adjourn.
Please.
I'll make a motion to we adjourn for the evening.
All in favor?
Support. Oh.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.